Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Jesse, this is my garage, and today we're going to look at some parts that came in from the 300ZX. More specifically, we're going to look at the GT2860 Turbo that we just got from Max Feeding Rods. We're going to do two of these on our VG30 engine, turn it from an NA to a twin turbo. And today we're going to open up one of these boxes and see what exactly these things look like. Kind of the quality that we can expect and what we can just visually see. We'll talk about some of the key points on why I went with this turbo. And if you watch my coilover video about the unboxing those coilovers, I'm impressed with this box already. They don't have to be this nice, and they are on point with how the boxing of the coilovers were. So we'll take a peek at this, see how it's packaged, and then get this product out. Let's get to it. All right, well, as you can see here, we got a few goodies that came in for our project. Some stuff over here I'm not really going to talk about. I'm mostly going to focus on this today. GT2860, or all those fancy words, letters, and numbers. Let's open this bad boy up. So boxing on this is really nice. Sturdy box, slick on the outside. Boxes don't have to be this nice. And here we go. Got our packaging, and then there she is. And of course, looks like it comes with, so this is just foam packaging. Keeps stuff tight in there, expands to form-fitting packaging, really. So that's nice. Doesn't look like this thing's gonna move around. They've got it on the other side there. Later, but let's get to this because this is what I want to see. There's the other side of the packaging, more foam there. All right, well, there it is. Got our little caps on there to keep anything out of the compressor area. Max Feeding Rods on the cast aluminum housing that houses our compressor, and dun, 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 let's take this off. Woohoo, look at that. All right, well, here we have our GT2860 Turbo from Max Feeding Rods, and we're just gonna start from the back and work our way forward. I'm gonna touch on a few different things. So number one, just from how a turbo works, is we've got our mounting flange. Now this flange mounts up to the exhaust manifold, that of course feeds the exhaust through our turbocharger. And this one is a T25 style mounting flange, which is perfect for the project car we're going to be using on the 300ZX, because that's the same mounting flange as the stock turbos, and the same mounting flange, of course, on the stock manifold. So we're just going to use stock manifolds, and this will mount up nicely right there. Then we can move to the back. So once the exhaust goes through this housing, which is a cast stainless steel housing, it's going to spin our blade back here. The exhaust is going to spin that blade back here. Now this blade is a stainless steel blade that's actually from a material they call K419 alloy. It's temperature resistant up to 1,000 degrees. So this is going to spin around, and it's connected to the compressor housing, and it'll spin that as the exhaust goes around here, but we'll talk about that more in a second. I want to talk about some more features that is on the exhaust side of this turbo. So as you can see right here, all GT series turbos have a 5-bolt flange. This is what we're going to bolt up to our exhaust here. So our dump pipe or down pipe will bolt right to here, and put a gasket in there, of course, and then that'll feed into our exhaust. Now we're going to be using this on our 300ZX. Stock 300ZX turbos have a 4-bolt bolt pattern. So if you were to put this on your 300ZX, you would need to have a different down pipe. We, of course, will be using a 5-bolt down pipe on ours. So this valve right here is hooked up to our Wastegate Actuator, and it opens at a certain amount of pressure that this hose feeds to the actuator and lets it know when we're at the right pressure, and it'll open this valve let the exhaust escape through this valve, bypass this wheel to slow this wheel and stop it from building boost pressure on the other side, and allow the exhaust to flow directly out the back of the car and through the exhaust system. So that's the back of this turbocharger. Now the AR, which is basically just a fancy way, well, it is the way that you measure like a round space like this. So it's a 0.64 AR, which basically talks about the volume of air that or gas that can pass through this. Is a 0.64. I'll talk about that more in a second once we talk about the front AR, but just know the higher the number, the more it flows. So it's just talking about space that it's measuring. So this is a 0.64 AR on the rear. Now, as we move our way forward, we're gonna talk about the center, and this is gonna be our oil feed. This is where we're gonna feed oil through to the turbo to lubricate it and keep it cool on our bearings on the center shaft that connects both the compressor and impeller. And then of course, so the ones, we have one on this side and a matching one on the other side for entrance and exits of this is the coolant. So this is for water or coolant go through here and just keep the turbocharger cool. And we'll make our way around, and this is going to be the drain for the turbocharger. This is for the drain for the oil. As it goes through and lubricates and cools everything, this will drain and it'll loop back around into our oil pan. Then we might as well go to the other side. Here's the other water outlet that I was talking about. That water will pass through there and keep the center of this turbocharger cool, because that is the name of the game. These things get hot and we want to keep them lubricated and cool. And while we are on this side of the turbocharger, here is the Wastegate Actuator that I was talking about. So there's just a vacuum diaphragm in here that this hose will go either, sometimes you can see them connected directly here, sometimes they're connected to the intercooler piping just right in front of this, which measures the pressure coming out of here, or in most cases, because you're going to be tuning the car, this is going to be hooked up to your boost controller, and then the other side of your boost controller will be hooked up to measure the output of the turbo to see how much PSI you're running. So once the vacuum is applied to here and it's at a certain PSI, I believe this one's 8 pounds, this will pull this arm in and open that gate, bypassing, letting the exhaust flow bypass and slow down the impeller to stop any building pressure on the other side. So that's how that simple wastegate works, like this on like a T25, T28 turbocharger. All right, so we talked about the back of the turbo, we talked around the center of the turbo, we talked about the actuator. Now let's talk about the business end of the turbo. This side is the side that's actually going to build boost and build the pressure that we need to turbocharge our engine and make lots of horsepower. So as the exhaust blade spins, as you can see right here, it's going to spin our compressor blade, and the compressor blade is going to suck air in this area, compress it, build PSI to whatever we have it tuned to, because our wastegate's going to allow us to do that with our boost controller and our tuning, and we're going to be safe about it, not blow up our engine. So we're going to have this build our pressure and feed it into our intercooler piping, and then into our intake manifold, and then into our engine, and then it's going to turn into exhaust and go back, and the cycle never ends. So that's what's pretty cool about a turbocharger, is it just uses stuff that you're already producing. You're already producing exhaust gas. We just use the exhaust gas to produce more power. Now, when we look at an compressor blade, we want it to be balanced, and we want it to fit well. You know, we want it precision machined, and on the max speeding rods, compressor wheels, they precision, oh my gosh, I cannot talk. Precision machining for the perfect shape and the blade precision that we can do to make as efficient as possible. They also, what's very important about turbochargers and just the assembly of this, putting it all, is the VSR balancing. Now, all max speeding rod turbos are VSR balanced, and what that is they put this blade on a machine and they balance it to get rid of any vibration and all that stuff. And you know what, let me go and just explain that a little bit deeper right now. So what is VSR balancing? Good question. Well, I had to look it up myself because I wanted to know a little bit more about what we're talking about here. So the purpose of the VSR balancing process is basically to control the turbo's vibration level. that thing spins at a high rate of speed, and we want it to be as stable as possible with the least amount of vibration possible, both to reduce noise and to prolong the life of the bearing inside the turbo. Okay, that sounds great, but how the heck do you balance them? Well, so turbo's made up of different components and they're all bolted together. You have the exhaust housing, the compressor housing, the turbine wheel for the exhaust, and the compressor wheel for the front. And all these parts are assembled separately. So usually they balance the turbine wheel for the exhaust side and the compressor wheel separately. So on the exhaust side, the turbine wheel doesn't necessarily affect the balance of the turbocharger like on the compressor side with the compressor wheel. So that's where we're going to really balance this thing and look, because on the compressor side we have the thrust, collar, and nose nut. Those can accumulate balancing errors, and that's where we're going to put this thing on the VSR balancing machine and balance it out, running it at its operating speed. The rotor system imbalance can be corrected by running the assembly cartridge at high speed on a flex suspension measuring vibration response, the VSR balancing, and either changing the assembly position or removing metal to achieve the acceptable balance. This operation requires the unit to be run at speeds, the normal operating speed, typically 100,000 to 250,000 revolutions per minute. So remember I said these things are spinning insanely fast, so even the smallest vibration can throw it off. Depending on the wheel size, that'll depend on how the speed that they run it at. Conventional practice is to remove material from the nose nut to achieve acceptable vibration levels. So I hope you have a better understanding about how VSR technology and balancing works. Let's get back to the unboxing. All right, so now we know what VSR machining is. So every compressor wheel is 100% balanced, tested, VSR machine balanced. And we can see on this where they hit that nut to shave it to make sure that we weren't going to get any vibration out of that. Usually, like I just talked about, they'll do it on this mounting nut, and we can see it on this one right here. So the AR of the exhaust part of this turbo was a 0.64. The AR for the compressor side of the turbo is a 0.6. So it's just a little bit smaller. And what we want to do, these are great for 4-cylinder engines up to about 400 horsepower. You're going to probably be a little bit under 400 horsepower, probably like 350 horsepower on the max end of something like this on a 0.64 AR radio. But it's good because the higher you go, the more power you can make. For one, you have to make sure your engine can handle that power because you're going to be putting more air into it, more compression, more fuel, more everything, more heat. Now, on something that's, you go on the little bit lower side, like a 0.64, you're going to get a better throttle response because you have to think, we have to fill up the chamber, get to that 0.64, get that full, and that's when it starts producing power. So hopefully this will give us a nice throttle response. It won't be turbo laggy like a bigger one. So you have like this is like one of the most common cars right now, the Mark IV Supra. Everybody wants to make 1,000 horsepower. Really put a big, huge turbo on there with a big AR so it can fit lots of air through there. And then you're gonna be getting your power band at like 6,500 RPMs. Hopefully we'll have this kick on. We should be feeling this. If it's anything like the T28 that's on my SR20 engine, we'll be in the power band 3,500 RPM. We should be just fine feeling the turbos kicking in and full boost. But I can explain the AR a little bit more right now. All right, well, this GT2860 series turbo has a turbine AR of 0.64 and a compressor AR of 0.6. And that's great, but what does that all mean? Well, first we need to know what AR even stands for. AR stands for area over radius. It's defined by the inlet cross-sectional area divided by the radius of the turbine center. But what does that even mean? So we can go into detail on that. It's basically just measuring the volume at which it can pass gas, on the exhaust side, pass your exhaust gas how much area it can move at one point. So the smaller the area, the less flow you're going to have, but the quicker it's going to spool. And of course, the larger the number is going to spool slower, but move a larger volume of air or exhaust gas. So on something like our 3-liter V6, well, this is a twin turbo application. So it's not actually even looking at 3 liters. Each of these turbochargers is only going to be handling half that. So we need a smaller, we don't need to flow a massive amount of exhaust gas and a massive amount of air coming in. What we really want is a quicker spooling turbo, because we're literally only turbocharging a 1.5 liter engine, one on each side of, one bank of 3 cylinders, 1.5 liters, the other bank of cylinders, 1.35 liters. So we're gonna have each turbo doing that. We wouldn't want a big AR for something like that. So I think basically the 0.6 AR is going to work out great for this application and hopefully give us a quick spooling, very responsive turbo. All right, so now that you've really been schooled up about AR, VSR balancing, what goes into a turbo, what the components are of the turbo, what you can expect from a max peating rod turbo, and the components, and this is what it looks like. I mean, this looks great. I'm super impressed with everything I've seen on this turbo so far. I'll be really interested to see this thing in action when we get 2 of these bolted on our V6 application for the 300ZX. Now, a few things I just want to touch on real quick. We'll go like a quick overview. This is the GT2860 turbo, oil cooled and water cooled. Of course, the oils for lubrication as well. We've got a 5-volt exhaust flange. That's what you're going to find on most GT series turbos. We have a turbine AR ratio, so that is the rear turbine for the exhaust side, and that is a 0.64. And then of course our compressor side AR is a 0.60. I think that's kind of where they get the GT2860 comes in at. And one thing Max Peating Rods does offer on this turbocharger, and most, I think all of their turbochargers, is a 1-year manufacturer warranty. So manufacturer from any defects, they're gonna go ahead and replace this for you. One thing I didn't talk about is the bearing that runs through this. So of course, this impeller is connected to our impeller back here. Well, we have to have bearings. So the bearings that they use on the shaft that runs and connects these together is actually a floating style bearing. And it is rated up to 3 bar. The turbo temperature resistant of about 1,000 degrees Celsius, aluminum blades, CNC machined, T25 mounting flange, which is extremely important because you have to know how you're going to mount your turbo up to your vehicle. All right, so we looked at the turbocharger, and here's some of the hardware that it comes with. We've got an exhaust manifold gasket, T25 exhaust manifold gasket. This, of course, is going to go between our exhaust manifold and our turbo, right to the top there. It's nice that it comes with this stuff, so you don't necessarily have to go source any yourself. We've got the oil drain gasket right here that'll go on the bottom of the turbo. And we've got a banjo bolt, which banjo bolts have a hole inside of them, and they're hollow, so they can feed oil or coolant through this and then into the turbocharger. And then we've got a gasket for that. And then we've got an oil restrictor. If we've got too much oil pressure and it's blowing oil around, we can restrict that, how much oil goes into the turbo with this guy. Just will go on the oil feed, and you can see you can get like a little screwdriver in there. Turn it down, and this will limit the amount of oil that goes into your turbo to the perfect amount if you need to use it for that. We got some other parts that I came in. We'll check out these because this kind of goes with it. So this is just an oil return and feed line from Max Peating Rods. I just ordered this to go with the turbo kit, since we will be, as you can see, there's a lot of parts we will be doing. This is definitely a DIY, not a direct bolt-on type of deal. And this is going to be our oil drain line. We'll cut that to length, whatever we need. Oil feed line right here. This will go into the block on this side, and then this one, I guess we'll just take this out a little bit because we are doing an unboxing video, so this is what we can expect to see. Boom, let's take these off. There you go. So we'll get that guy on there. And then, so this should, hopefully this will work to feed our turbo, get it the oil that it needs. This is for a different turbocharger kit, but it's a universal style kit that we will use. And then this, of course, which is nice that they do this because these things fray like crazy. But this is just a non-pressure line that's just going to let the oil drain from the turbo on the bottom and go to our oil pan right there. And then this kit is this kit is like 50 bucks. Then you can use promo code JGarage and you can get this kit for even cheaper. I think we get another like 17% off or something like that. And you support the sponsors that support the garage. And then, I mean, you get all these extra pieces to put whatever you want on there. And if you don't use them all, whatever you need for your project, if you don't use them all, then you can have them for another project. But it comes with, you could bolt that to your oil pan and use that as your oil drain, which I totally would do on my oil pan, except for my oil pan's crushed, so we have to order a new one anyways. And there's all kinds of pieces to make it work. This is a universal kit, so you're gonna have extra pieces, but this is gonna get you mostly what you need to get started and get the job done. All right, well, there's a look at the turbochargers we're going to be using on our 300ZX NA to twin turbo build. We'll be using 2 of these. We put them on an engine out right over there, which I haven't really talked about yet, which is coming soon. These, I do have a couple more parts from Max Speeding Rods that we'll save for another video, unboxing video. This one I just really wanted to talk about kind of the turbochargers and what we'll be using and kind of what you can expect when you open one of those up. We won't dilute it with some other projects that we're going to use for the same build. But that's it. Feel free to check out Max Speeding Rods. We're still running the coilovers on our 300ZX. We're just going to. This is going to turn into like all kinds of stuff on there. We will test out the products and see how they go. So our coilovers on there. If you want to get some coilovers for your car, you want to get some turbochargers or all kinds of stuff for your car. If you need some new oil return lines, actually we have some stuff over there that not necessarily based around turbo stuff, but can help you with even just maintenance on your car. Go check out maxspeedingrods.com. Support the sponsors that support us in this garage, because without them, it'd be a little bit more slow going around here. So we definitely appreciate them for helping us out. And use promo code JGarage. That way they can know I sent you and you can save yourself some extra money, because hey, we're all on a budget. These cars are expensive and we need to be able to make our dollar go as far as possible. So make it go a little bit further with Max Speeding Rods. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure and stay tuned and subscribe, because we have a couple more boxes we're gonna open up, and then we're gonna put all this stuff on a motor I have right back over there, and then we're gonna put it on the car that's sitting right here, and hopefully have as little downtime as possible and be enjoyable as it can be. So thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.